Flávio said he's alone.
Poor thing. I wonder why he's alone. And I heard there's going to be a new scandal about him.
Involving the situation over there in Rio de Janeiro, the rapporteur of the case isn't André Mendonça, it's Alexandre de Moraes. I've already explained this to you in a live stream. I'm just reminding you all. At any moment, another bombshell about Flávio could drop, and all hell is going to break loose. But in the meantime, the fight has already started. The fight. And it's a clash of giants. It's a fight between André Mendonça and the Prosecutor General. Office of the Prosecutor General of the Republic. Well, then, yesterday, the Prosecutor General spoke out. I told you that. Saying that André Mendonça lacked jurisdiction to oversee the police investigation into Flávio. That's Lulinha, Lula's son. And the Prosecutor General said that this should go down to the lower court because there was no one with special jurisdiction tied to public office for the case to remain before the Supreme Court. Then André Mendonça said that there was indeed. But doesn't the Prosecutor General know? What the hell is this, guys? The Prosecutor General has to know, guys. The Prosecutor General should have known before the judge. But anyway, so you can already see the mess. And now the Prosecutor General speaks up and says he doesn't see any connection from the investigation that is investigating Flávio, Lula's son, Lulinha, with the INSS fraud. The Prosecutor General said there's no connection. There is no evidence, nothing that says Flávio is involved with the INSS fraud or with the bald guy from INSS. And look, the federal police went deep into this investigation, unlike the investigation against Flávio Bolsonaro. Why do I say that? They even started talking, including in the Joint Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry. Pay attention to this, because everything is connected. In the Joint Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry about the INSS fraud, whose rapporteur was Flávio Bolsonaro's deputy, Alfredo Gaspar. In fact, they are saying he chose Alfredo Gaspar to take the fall. About the protection and shielding that Alfredo Gaspar provided for him and his political group during the investigation of the Joint Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry into the INSS fraud. Well, over at the Joint Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry investigating the INSS fraud, they went after Lulinha in every possible way. They requested the lifting of banking secrecy, the lifting of confidentiality in every possible way. And obviously, André Mendonça authorized it. They said that Lulinha, Lula's son, received a monthly allowance of 300,000 reais from the bald guy at INSS who was involved up to his neck. They carried it out, they lifted the confidentiality, they did everything. They didn't find anything. No transfer was made from anyone to Lulinha related to the INSS fraud. They dug into everything. They did everything. And they didn't find anything. So given this context, which is important for us to explain, the Attorney General said, I don't see any connection with Lulinha, Lula's son, and the INSS fraud. There is no evidence linking him to the bald guy from INSS and the INSS fraud. The Attorney General of the Republic was the one who said it and included it in his opinion, which he handed over to André Mendonça. In fact, Lulinha is now filing a lawsuit against Flávio Bolsonaro and others who made videos and said he was involved in the INSS fraud, that he received a monthly allowance of 300,000 from the bald guy from INSS, this and that and so on. So the Attorney General cleared Lulinha regarding the INSS fraud. Of course, the Bolsonaro supporters don't want you to know that. I'll show you more details about that in a moment. Of course, when Flávio Bolsonaro is asked about the film's accounting, he says that it's Lula who has to explain. It's Lulinha who has to explain. The INSS fraude. And I'm showing you and telling you and confirming with you now that the Attorney General cleared Lulinha of the INSS fraud. They didn't find anything against him. Nevertheless, they've lifted confidentiality protections, they've done a thorough investigation and found nothing. Period. That's why it's important for you to share the live stream. Flávio Bolsonaro is holding on to that, and so are the Bolsonaro supporters. To try to get away and avoid the duty, he has to account for the more than 60 million reais they received from Daniel Vorcaro. Then you ask him, so what about it? And he goes, oh, what about Lulinha? What about Lulinha? What? Did you get it, my dear? So share the live stream. It's really important. Regarding the government, the Attorney General also spoke out. The Attorney General said that there is no connection between the INSS fraud and Lula's government. The fraud was carried out by a group of people led by the bald guy from INSS, who has been in prison since last year. But that Lula's government, the government and its ministers, are not involved. By the way, secrecy was lifted, there was a thorough investigation, and the Attorney General said there is no connection between the INSS fraud and Lula's government. In other words, the Attorney General also clears Lula and his secretaries and ministers. They had nothing to do with it. According to the evidence presented by the federal police, and I repeat, everyone, several searches and seizures of documents, computers, and cell phones were carried out. Bank, tax, and electronic data secrecy was lifted, and a thorough investigation was conducted. And now the Attorney General comes and says, the INSS fraud has no connection with Lula's son, and no connection with Lula's government. Period. Then Flávio, yesterday, he went to a protest to do an event, right? A political one. And people already went after him. Where's the accountability, Flávio, for the movie? Oh, Lula. Oh, Lulinha is the one who has to account for it. By the way, has he already done it? Because I actually saw on G1 that they filed the accounts there and everything is fine. And they didn't find anything. He lied. Flávio Bolsonaro lied again. And once again, he put the spotlight on the Lula government, on Lula, on Lulinha. I just talked about the statement from the Attorney General's office here, to avoid having to answer for his actions. I will show you all of that. But then you might ask me, Andrea,
I want to understand a little more.
how is the situation between the PGR and André Mendonça now? André Mendonça will insist on investigating, on talking about the situation of Lula's government and Lulinha's government with the INSS fraud, because he is the justice assigned to the case. Will he continue? I believe so. Even with the opposing opinion from the Attorney General's office, I believe so. And can he do that? Yes, he can. And why do I believe so? Because there is an organized effort to use this politically. And in my view, even the Global Network has already taken sides. Globo is talking about these situations day and night, not showing what's really happening, like I'm showing you now, that the Attorney General's office has weighed in, clearing Lula's government and Lulinha from this situation. They show it all the time, from morning to afternoon and at night. Yesterday, I got home from the gym at night. I said, I'll watch the news to see what's happening, because it was like this all day long. Then I turned on Globo, and there was again, Lulinha, blah, 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 blah.
What do they want with that?
They want Lula not to win in the first round. That's what they want. So Lula has to make an alliance with their representatives in the second round. With whom? With the oligarchic elite and some more people on the right. They are desperate, and it's not just her, the complicit media and the elite in general. They are desperate if Lula wins in the first round, because that will give Lula a lot of power. So they've already taken sides, and they want to push the situation to a second round. And there's a plan to drag out this whole situation, to try to wear Lula down, even with the Attorney General speaking out. That's why we have to share this, bring this to people. Even with the Attorney General speaking and all that, they're going to drag this out to feed the sheep and to feed this corporate media that doesn't want Lula to win in the first round. But you might say, Andrea, but there's a catch. The prosecutor general, Andrea, as you always say, the prosecutor general is the one who has authority over the criminal prosecution. If the attorney general doesn't press charges, nothing will happen to Lulinha, Andrea. I know that. You who follow me here on the channel, I've already explained this to you several times. You know this too. The attorney general, as he's clearing them now. What does that mean? That he won't press charges against them, and there won't be any case against them. But they're not worried about criminal cases. They're focused on dragging out the investigation all the way to the election to wear down Lula. In the end, there won't be any case against Lulinha or against Lula. But what's their goal? Is it to achieve justice? Obviously not. Their goal is to influence, to interfere in the election, which will have the first round on October 4th. That's what they want. Because if the Attorney General is saying they're not involved, the Attorney General won't press charges against them. And without charges, there's no case. He's going to press charges against the bald guy from INSS and everyone else who is involved. But they don't need a case. They need to smear Lula and keep dragging this out, along with the corporate media. It looks like the whole Lava Jato strategy is back again, of talking nonsense. And it doesn't show what I'm telling you. So we have to be very careful, and there's no way. We have to engage on social media and show the truth. That's why I chose this title. The Attorney General's office exonerates Lulinha. Exactly, so people know right away what I'm talking about, because that's what happened. But you won't see them talking about that out there in the corporate media. So we need to get involved. Look here, see? The Attorney General's office says that the federal police did not find any business between Lulinha and the government. The prosecutor's office also rules out any direct connection with the scheme involving improper INSS deductions. Here, look. The Attorney General's office doesn't see any evidence of contracts between the bald guy from INSS and Lula's government. That's how it is. Lula's son is suing Flávio Bolsonaro over a video about suspected INSS embezzlement. And it's Flávio Bolsonaro who is going to be sued. He's going to be sued because he made a video. And it's not just him. There are others too. He made a video saying that Lulinha, Lula's son, received a monthly allowance of 300,000 reais from the bald guy at INSS. And that's not true. The federal police couldn't find any evidence of that. And now the Attorney General has spoken out and said that there's no connection between Lula's son and the INSS fraud. It's important to point out that this whole mess started at the INSS Parliamentary Inquiry Commission. Os rapporteur Weiss. Fabricating evidence. Flávio Bolsonaro's deputy, Alfredo Gaspar. where Alfredo Gaspar failed to report those who should have been reported. For example, Andrea, and even Daniel Vorcaro himself. And people connected to Flávio Bolsonaro. Daniel, guys, Daniel Vorcaro was authorized during Bolsonaro's government to make INSS deductions. Master made hundreds, even thousands of improper deductions from INSS retirees and pensioners. And Alfredo Gaspar, Flávio's deputy in the Parliamentary Inquiry Commission report, did not list Daniel Vorcaro as one of the suspects. He didn't list him. And he went there and listed Lula's son to create the whole false narrative. And it ended up with the federal police. And the federal police didn't find any evidence against Lula's son. Regarding the INSS frauds, let's watch a video here where Freixo, Marcelo Freixo, explains why Flávio Bolsonaro, actually, it's not even Marcelo Freixo, it's Congressman Rogério Correia with other congressmen here. Why did Flávio Bolsonaro choose Alfredo Gaspar as his deputy? He's paying a debt, according to the three congressmen here. Look, pay attention.
Alfredo Gaspar being chosen as Flávio Bolsonaro's running mate is payment for services rendered. To protect Bolsonaro's criminal scheme of the INSS theft and the connection of these financing schemes with dirty money for the Bolsonaro family's campaigns.
He shamelessly, blatantly warned the president of Conifer to run away when the federal police were after him to arrest him. There was a court order against the entity that stole the most and for its president to be arrested. He warned during the CPI, right, Rogério? Do you remember that scene? Where he warned the guy saying he knew he was in a certain place. Look, he just ran away and still hasn't been arrested because of Alfredo Gaspar, who's protecting his Bolsonaro supporting friends. Letícia, Flávio Bolsonaro's business partner, is the sister of the business partner of the bald guy from INSS. Everyone is involved in this scheme. Simply, Alfredo Gaspar didn't include her in the report. He didn't want her to be investigated. He didn't want her to be indicted. Pure protection, pure shielding. That's why he won the prize of being nominated for vice president. But he also shielded more people, didn't he, Rogério?
Yes, it was a smokescreen they created the whole time. They kept diverting from the subject.
But the main issue, which was to find out who stole from the retirees and put those people in jail, that they didn't do. They protected the Letícia woman. They protected the bald guy's brother. They protected Pastor Zetel, who was Volcario's partner. They protected Volcario, and our requests were never put up for a vote. Collusion between Alfredo Gaspar and Flávio Bolsonaro. That's his reward. Now is the Bolsonaro camp's candidate.
Did you know that he also didn't include in the report the guy, the pastor, who was also his partner, the brother-in-law, who donated to whose campaign, Pimenta? To Zetel.
The biggest individual contribution to Bolsonaro's campaign and Tarcísio de Freitas' campaign was from Zetel, Volcario's brother-in-law, protected in the CPI by Carlos Viana and Alfredo Gaspar.
Just Google it and you'll see the guy is even in jail, but not because of the rapporteur's actions. He simply didn't include him either and didn't request the indictment of Tarcísio's campaign donor, Bolsonaro's campaign donor, even though he's in jail because of a court order. So the protection was completely done by the rapporteur.
That's right, repaying a debt. This situation, collusion, a criminal organization that wants to seize power and become president of the republic. And I'm noticing that YouTube is holding back my views, you know? The only way we can reach more people is if you share the live stream. Is it holding back? It's holding back. It shouldn't be like this. With a headline like this, with a bombshell like the one I'm sharing with you, that you will hardly ever see in the corporate media, we have less than 4,000 people watching live. Central, share the link to the live stream. I'm asking you to share it. Because if we don't engage, we're screwed. Social media won't push this content either. it won't get this truth out there. The big tech companies won't do that. You have to do it. How, Andre? By sharing, grabbing the link, sending it to WhatsApp groups, and going all out. It's already started. If you don't wake up, look, we're already at war. And things are already getting rough from all sides. And to take down Lula. Look here, Flávio Bolsonaro says Dark Horse is a thing of the past. And he tries to link the master case to Lula again. When confronted by journalists about the demands made by the Workers' Party to detail the production expenses, the senator replied that it had already been done. The accounting had already been submitted. Flávio said he saw in the press the film's accounting records, which were leaked from the case file, that they responded and saw that everything was in order. What the hell is this? The guy who took the money. Then he says he saw the accountability report through. Guys, what is this? Does the guy think we're idiots, morons? He doesn't work! For God's sake, guys! He has to be held accountable. Or are we going to put a criminal in the presidency? No, you won't, Flávio. You won't do that. No, you won't. No, you won't. You even forget your way home. Then people started talking. Everyone started talking about this situation here. Look, let's put up some comments here. Let's see what Freixo said.
Guys, look, check out this latest one from Flávio Bolsonaro. It was today. Look, pay attention. A real gem.
What can you say about this? Any idea when that accounting will be provided? Look, it already happened. I saw it on G1. The actual accountability report shown in the film was leaked from the case they responded to, and they saw that everything was in order. Now, the one who has to give explanations is Lula, not me.
Hey, Flávio, what does Lula have to explain, man? This movie, Dark Rose, is about your father, not about Lula. And more than that, money for Vorcaro, your big brother. But let me be objective, Flávio, so you can understand. Just 4 questions, since you said you don't have to answer anything else. You said you were going to answer. And time goes by, and you don't answer. But I'll make your life easier. 4 questions for you to answer. I even wrote them down. First one, let's go. Why was a production company that never made any movies chosen by you to make a major production? Why this production company? So answer objectively. That hasn't been answered. If you can't answer, dance around it. Second question, let's go. Why is the budget for this movie twice as much as any movie available at the Oscars? Why? Second question, answer. Third question, let's go. With all that money, a lot of money, you failed to pay, you defaulted on extras, on suppliers, and the food served to the employees who worked on the movie was spoiled. That's the accusation that's out there. And the last question, for you to answer or dodge, you choose. Here we go. The last question is this. Vorcaro, remember Vorcaro? Mafia bank, your buddy, whom you called asking for money for this movie. He gave 61 million for the movie in the United States. But the movie was shot in Brazil, man. So, are you going to answer or dodge? Man, I don't know if you're going to answer, but the federal police are looking for that answer. And from what I can see, you are not involved in a movie. You are involved in a soap opera. And the ending might not be happy for you. Guys, look, check out this latest from Flávio Bolsonaro.
Yeah, guys, like, the guy has to explain. He doesn't explain. And he still wants to put the responsibility on others. And the prosecutor general just said that Lula's son has nothing to do with the INSS fraud. The prosecutor general. Prosecutor general. E Lulinha? Where's the accounting, Flávio? You were caught red-handed, demanding 134 million from Daniel Vorcaro. You weren't asking, you were demanding. Then you had to confess that you received 61 million. If you didn't receive even more, and you said the money went to the movie, to a fund in Texas, and the person responsible is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, there in Texas, where Eduardo lives in a $6 million mansion. Who's paying the bill? Where's the accountability? And you know what makes me even more upset? It's that André Mendonça still hasn't requested access to Flávio's bank records. There should already be an order for access to Flávio and Eduardo Bolsonaro's bank records, at the very least, and for this Carlisto guy who's responsible for the fund. There should have been, but there's nothing. And André Mendonça is going to drag this out until the election is over. If Lula wins, then he'll go after it. If Lula loses, he'll shelve it. That's what they're doing. And they're working to shield Flávio at Lula's expense, so that Lula loses. But look, we're talking about it here. Boulos also talked about the situation. This situation, right? Terrible. They're trying to smear Lula. That's what they're trying to do. Take a look here.
Notice a lot of people from our side asking, hey, how are we going to respond to the accusations against Lula's son? Hey, guys, hold on a second. Lula's son, Fabio, is being investigated by the federal police independently. The president said the investigation will happen, and if he did something wrong, he should pay, no matter who it hurts. Meanwhile, the one pointing fingers at us with his dirty finger is the son of the guy who, when he was President Bolsonaro, did everything to save his son Flávio. From the investigations in Rio de Janeiro about connections with the so-called crime office, about the Rachadinha scheme, about the association with the assassination of Marielle, he ordered the dismissal of the superintendent of the federal police, the head of the federal police, and the Minister of Justice. All of this is documented. This is not a conspiracy theory. In other words, on one side you have those who investigate, and on the other side you have those who sweep things under the rug. And are we the ones who have to be on the defensive? The one who needs to explain himself is Flávio Bolsonaro. Why did his father cover up all the investigations against him, removing the entire structure, the team, those responsible for the investigation, in the federal police, in the Ministry of Justice? The one who needs to explain himself is Flávio Bolsonaro, about the 19.60 million from Dark Horse, which everyone knows wasn't for a movie. And 3 months ago, he said he was going to release the spreadsheet. And he didn't say anything, didn't release anything. And today he cynically said, it's a closed chapter. There's no reason for our side to be on the defensive, man. We have to go after this bunch of traitors to the country. I'm seeing a lot of people on our side asking, man, how are we going to respond? And so
we have to go after them, guys. We have to go after them. Regarding Lulinha, so, André, what was left of the investigation? You just said that the Attorney General cleared Lulinha, saying he has nothing to do with the INSS fraud. That's true. The Attorney General just said that. That Lulinha has nothing to do with the INSS fraud, with the bald guy from INSS, just like the Lula government doesn't either. What was left of the investigation? There was still an investigation against Lulinha. There was. What is being investigated now is whether Lula's son was involved in influence peddling with regard to a businesswoman. This businesswoman was trying to sell cannabidiol to the Ministry of Health so that the government to sell, yes, the Ministry of Health, the SUS, yes, so that they would make cannabidiol oil available to people, which today is used in very specific situations, which helps with seizures, panic attacks, a number of situations. That this oil is very good for those people. Then this businesswoman tried to sell this cannabidiol oil to Brazil's public health system through the Ministry of Health. But she couldn't do it. Then, in several situations, she would say she was speaking on behalf of Lula's son, Fábio. But Fábio himself never appeared in any way, whether by phone or in audio from him. Lulinha's defense says that this woman was using Lula's son's name to try to get this contract with the government. But Lula's son never had any involvement, nothing with this woman. She was falsely using his name. So much so that she wasn't able to get the contract with the government. She didn't finalize the contract with the government in that regard. That's why I say, if there had been any intermediation, any illicit favoritism, any situation like that, she would have gotten the contract. She would have, André, she would have. Unfortunately, we know that's how it is. She didn't get the contract. It was because, very possibly, according to the defense of Lula's son, yes, she lied, trying to gain influence in the government, saying that she was representing and speaking on behalf of Fábio, Lula's son. If she had, she would have succeeded. Well, yes, we know that this happens. If she didn't succeed, it's very likely that she was lying. She was trying to see if she could get the contract with the government, and she didn't succeed. So this investigation is still ongoing. This investigation continues, but it has nothing to do with no connection to the INSS fraud, according to the Attorney General himself. Do you understand? Now, the herd will keep lying on social media. Flávio Bolsonaro will keep bringing up Lulinha because he doesn't want to be held accountable. And the fact is what I'm telling you right now. They are trying to use this politically to see if Lula doesn't win in the first round and if Flávio can win the presidency. That's what they're doing. It's clear. After the elections are over and Lula is re-elected, everything will go to the archives. Everything will be filed away. That's what's happening, okay? Let's watch another statement from Congressman Lindenberg Farias. Have you liked the live yet? No? Like the live, it's very important. When you like the live, YouTube recommends it to more people automatically. So smash that like button. Lula is a 4-time winner, and you're going to have to accept it. Kisses. See you on the next live stream. Take care. Bye-bye.